he sort of toddled along at primary school, did fairly okay. You know, he's been constantly bullied, but did fairly okay. But when he went to high school, it seemed to open a can of worms, and I think it's probably because there's so much more of the social scene at high school and what kids do after and on the bus and things like that.
Our absolute biggest fear for him going into high school was how is he going to cope out in the playground, because the school he came from, the support unit had a separate area where they didn't integrate too much into mainstream areas. They did, but not a lot. Whereas in high school, they are expected to, you know, at recess and lunch, look after themselves. So we were really concerned about how that was going to go. But we found that the other kids have been a great support for James, and he has got some nice little friends at school. Not a lot, but you know, a couple there. It's good.
I know that he constantly seeks out, as we tend to call the in crowd, you know, always have done, because he can see that they're having fun, that they're popular, that they're, you know, people want to talk to them, and they generally look good, you know, they look cool in Sam's eyes, and they're probably not the best children that he should draw, you know, be attracted to, but he is, which usually ends in tears.
The advice, again, that we would try to give a child about interacting with their peers is to say, well, look, there's nothing wrong with you, but this main pack over here, they may not be accepting of you yet, but there might be a crowd over here that are much more accepting of people who are different. And I love schools that have structures like computer clubs and robotic clubs and chess clubs, and you know, there's a great music program or something structured that you can do rather than the you know, sitting around just chatting.
Schools can provide some extra opportunities of activities to do inside of a lunchtime. So there may be options to belong to clubs, to play specific sports, to use the library, to go into the computer lab, or to have a position of responsibility so that at part or all of the lunchtime they know what's expected. So rather than having a whole hour of unstructured playground time that makes them feel vulnerable and insecure, they can have something specific that they do on certain days of the week.
It's not uncommon for my clients to really start feeling like they're fitting in at high school, say in year 9, but who are they playing with in, say, the computer club or chess club? Sometimes really well with the year 7s, or sometimes even with, you know, more mature year 11s and year 12s. So, and saying to a child that that's actually what we'd expect, and that's good.
One of the other options that work well in some schools is to designate a buddy system, so that a student will have a particular group of kids to hang out with or to be with at some time in the playground. Most parents ask me about bullying at some stage in their child's schooling, and for children with autism spectrum disorders, we know that they are a vulnerable population. All students should know how to get help in the playground if they need it. So rather than lash out or get distressed, or alternatively to retreat into themselves, if they have a problem, they should be well versed in knowing, go to the teacher on duty, go to the front desk.
There's certain kids in his class that knew he liked Super Mario, and they were just calling him Mario, which probably, you know, you'd think was quite innocent, but doing it, the kids were doing it because they knew that Alex would scream and hold his ears and run off, and they kept doing it. And as a consequence, Alex actually kept saying to me he didn't want to go to school anymore. And then because he has the ability to talk, I had to try and get it out of him. Why didn't he want to go to school anymore? And it sort of became apparent that these kids had been saying things to him. So I advised the teachers, and they actually kept an eye out the next day, and they caught the children doing it again in the act. And those year 3 children actually got letters home to parents and stuff. And Alex actually, it was a good learning curve for us, for him to say, look, if something like that happens, tell us, because, you know, we can get them to stop doing it if you tell us. If you don't tell us, then, you know, it could keep happening every day.
Until you've got a picture of what's happened, it's hard to know how to address it. But certainly take your concerns to the school earlier rather than later. I hear from teachers quite often, I didn't know that that had happened. Nobody told me. It wasn't recorded, particularly things that happen in the playground. So children, particularly children with autism, will not necessarily go to the teacher in the first instance to tell them what's occurred. They may not be able to even verbalise it.
They may misinterpret things, and that needs to be worked out, you know. There's a big difference between mucking around, joking, stirring and bullying. So an ASD kid sometimes needs help in understanding, was that kid just, mucking around like teenagers do, or was there something behind that? Trying to unpack those things. But if we think there's a serious case of bullying, there should be very top-down protection. I need the school authorities to really make it clear that this child is vulnerable and he's going to be looked after, and anybody crosses that, there will be a consequence.
All schools have bullying policies. They do vary in how they're enforced. The best schools will have a very strict zero tolerance for bullying, and the only way that that can be enforced if issues are reported.
Andrew did experience a little bit of bullying, but the school handled it very well. This boy in particular was going after Andrew, as in hitting him or trying to snap his jacket or trying to take his hat or push him. And what the school did is they assigned someone who would be on one-on-one with that boy who was having the difficulties, because it was not only Andrew he was targeting but others. And what they did is they set up a defense, and Andrew actually, they taught him how to say no and how to have a gesture where to push the bullying, so that when he's doing this, it alerts the adults that something is not right, and then they can interfere.
One of the things that we've worked on when teaching girls in particular to say, no, I don't want this to happen, or no, I don't like this situation, or no, I'm leaving now, is that you need to rehearse it. So you need to get into these peer-on-peer interactions in role plays and actually have them know what it feels like in their body to say no.
I am a big believer in, rather than just working on the ASD person about, anti-bullying measures, it really should be the community that looks after these guys. And so understanding that there are just natural places of vulnerability. It might be the locker area, it might be the change rooms, it might be, does a child with ASD necessarily have to, get changed with everybody else where he's, getting picked on, every Wednesday on sport day? Does his locker have to be with everybody else where somebody just, can easily give him a nudge?
Kids have to understand that it's going to happen. They have to be given those skills to be quite resilient around it. And then we need to educate the bullies as well around what it is that's happening for people who are different and why we have diversity in society.